And here we go. I think we're on episode 5. Well, it doesn't matter. I think we're going to do these episodes out of order. Welcome to the show, everyone, and welcome to our special guest, Heather Zapata, who's let me try to get this right, the chief, and correct me if I'm wrong, the chief. Wait, did I add chief in there unnecessarily?
You added chief, but I like it. It sounds good.
Okay. Principal. Here we go. I got it, guys. You know me. Have faith. The principal city prosecutor in Tucson.
Yeah, principal assistant city prosecutor. Yep.
And formerly, you also were with the law school, helping students get careers and get their jobs on. So when I was a 3L, the 1Ls that I remember are 3Ls now. So they're watching this. So how you got? I always say hi to them, even though I haven't seen them in forever, but they're watching. Sorry, I look like I just woke up because I was editing this project for all you guys, all super late last night. The Bar Stories project was launched because as somebody that had to take the bar 3 times, I was enamored and inspired in all these good words about stories that I've heard from my fellow classmates, from attorneys, from judges, about their struggles with the bar exam. And it's really a unique place to be in because, you know, you're successful in law school, you go to take this exam, you want to achieve this milestone, and you fall short. I think I was really wanting to get you on the show because I remember a conversation that we had about me not passing the bar. And one of the tough things that you have to do is talk to your mentors, your potential employers, and people that helped you along the way, like you did with me. Because full disclosure, I was in the prosecution clinic as a 2L. I think I was a 2L, and you were the boss of the bosses back then. Yeah, so I remember having to tell you, like, I didn't pass, and I'm gonna have to try again. And it's sort of embarrassing. And you shared with me like some strong words of support that I very much appreciated. I don't know if I relayed that because of the state that I was in. But what I like to do, Heather, is we share the stories of challenges that we face in the bar because we have a lot of students that are about to start that process. So tell us your experience about what it was like for you when you took the bar and some of the challenges that you faced.
Oh man.
Where do you start, right?
Yeah, where do you even start with that? I think going in, I mean, everyone says like this is going to be really like challenging and difficult and hard on you. I don't know if you can really appreciate that until you're looking back on it. But I don't think I took care of myself. And so I think that was part of it, is like by the time I got to the bar exam, I was so stressed and not feeling well that I was definitely not 100% going into taking the test. I had a horrendous migraine for the entire second day of the test. And so I think that's where I really failed, is in not taking care of myself. I was just so focused on it and so stressed about it.
That's a really consistent theme, and it's one that I can relate to. You don't appreciate the gravity of what you've done, and it's always like never good enough. And at a certain point that affects you in a negative way. And I always was thinking that, and it hindered me from making the progress that I needed to make. And so just to clarify, so what you were saying is that you weren't successful the first time that you took the bar?
Correct.
Okay, so one of the things that all my guests do, and I think that the audience really enjoys, is like, think back to when you were a 3L, you were about to take the bar, and it's an interesting time, right? Because you're excited to be done with law school, but then you have this thing looming over, which is the bar exam, and you've heard all the stories, and my point is that we haven't heard all the stories. We didn't hear a lot. I don't know about your experience, but we didn't hear a lot from the students that weren't successful and that had to overcome that obstacle. I think most of the time, if we went to like a bar panel, informational, whatever meeting about the bar exam, it was like students that took it and passed. And it's like, and I think the message is fitting for for a lot of people, where it's like, it's going to be hard, but work hard and you'll pass it. I mean, half the people fail, right, and have to redo it. And it's like, I was always interested in hearing those perspectives. Truth be told, they are very compelling stories, because it's a really crappy feeling to, you've been successful in school, graduated law school, things are looking on the up and up, and then you get the results, and it's like, that day, and most of us remember vividly the memory of that, because it's really something that it's hard to forget. So if you think back to when you found out that you weren't successful on your first bar exam, can you paint us a picture of what that was like?
Sure. I mean, I think you touched on this in the intro, is like, you feel very like ashamed, and you shouldn't, because half the people don't pass, right? Like, there shouldn't be shame on this. But I remember being completely devastated. I remember calling my dad in tears, and I was like, I'm not doing this again. Like, I don't even want to be a lawyer. I hate this. Like, I did all of this work, and here I am for what, right? And my dad convinced me to try again. And I think the other thing that happened in the few days and couple weeks, like after the bar exam, was that I had a lot of mentors and a lot of attorneys that I only even knew casually come up to me and say, hey, I've been there, and don't give up. And, I know a guy who took the bar 5 times, and he is a great attorney. It's I think you wouldn't judge Michael Jordan based on the games that he lost, right? Like,
absolutely, that
doesn't define his career. And yet, and I'm not saying I'm like the Michael Jordan of attorneys, because I don't think I am, but like, it's one test, it's one day. It doesn't define our careers. It doesn't define who we're going to be. It doesn't define the type of attorneys we're going to be. But I think because we don't talk about it, and because no one walks around saying like, hey, I had to take the bar exam 2 times, people feel all of this shame and guilt, and you feel like a failure, and you're not. And I think I've been very lucky in that I had really good mentors, and that I was working with people and around people who were very supportive, and who could give me some perspective on that, because I don't think if I did, I don't know that I would have done it again. And who knows, I could just be working at Starbucks right now. Instead, I don't know. And I've always tried to pay that forward. And any law student that I've ever worked with and knew, and if I knew that they didn't pass the bar exam, I always tried to reach out to people to let them know you're not alone, because it feels very isolating. Like, you have classmates around you. My husband passed the bar and I didn't.
Yeah.
And he was like, I don't understand, because he's like, you did better than me on every test we ever took in law school. Like, not significantly better, but like, he's like, this doesn't make any sense. So you have all these people around you that are celebrating, and you feel very devastated. And so it's a hard time.
Yeah, you made such great points. There is this very consistent theme that when you're unsuccessful, just people around you, especially if you're working in the legal environment, and they just come from all directions and tell you like, no big deal, and the same things were told to me, like, hey, I had to do it 3 times, or this guy, go talk to him, he did it 4 times or 5 times. Oh, this presiding judge had to take it 4 times. It doesn't matter, and I don't think that I would have had the motivation and the courage to try again without, these people that were willing to come forward and provide that support. Because without that, my parents I'm the first in my family to do a legal career. So, you know, my parents can provide emotional support, but they don't know the ins and the outs. So to hear that, it was so helpful to me. And what I've described it as is there's this bond between people that have had to take the bar more than once, and it's very strong. And it's like you'll go out of your way. And obviously what I'm doing with this project, it's very time consuming, but what I'm doing is I'm trying to pay it forward, like you said. You'll go out of your way to reach out to people because you know that feeling and you know what they're going through.
Yeah.
And you know that they're having these thoughts of self-doubt, and you just need to get them over that hump. And yeah, it's I'm so excited that you shared that, because I think as a student, if I'm putting my student lens on, I would, you know, meet you as a higher level person at the Tucson City Prosecutor's Office, and wouldn't even think in a million years that you experienced like what I've recently had to experience. You just assume that people that are successful, like they didn't go through this because they did just fine.
Yeah.
And it's such a hard thing to go through, because it's like you're happy for everyone else, but you have to deal with this very serious issue. So moving forward, did you identify like what you had to do differently to be successful right away, or was it something I really struggled with it? Like, what did I do wrong, and where do I go from here? Because it's not like I have somebody telling me what to do.
Yeah, I did, and I didn't really know exactly what to do. And at the time, I was working. I was a law clerk for a judge at Superior Court. So I only had a small window that I could take off to, you know, that I could afford to take off to study again. And yeah, so it was really hard. I can't, and I think I took about 2 weeks off. And during that time period, I actually, my husband was working at a public defender's office, and he, a law clerk there, was also studying to take the bar, and she was going to be taking it for the second time also. So she and I sort of studied together, and I think just having somebody else that had gone through that was really helpful. But yeah, there's not a good, like, you've already like I said, I completed my bar course. I didn't stop halfway through. So I'd already done what they told me I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
So what I did was, I think I had about 2 weeks off right before the bar. And I kind of mapped out, like, okay, here's how I'm going to review the different topics and go back over some of that bar course material. But I didn't have the luxury of doing a full bar course again. And like I said, there was only like one option back then, and it was live and in person. And so I had the books and I had my notes from that, and I kind of just set up at a coffee house and did that for 2 weeks, and ended up being successful the second time around. But yeah, there wasn't guidance on it, and I didn't feel like there was anyone I could go and ask, because I do feel like there was just like so much shame around it. And
I remember not thinking it was going to affect me as much as it did the first time, and then when it happened and I saw the list and my name wasn't on it, yeah, I felt like a great deal, especially because I was working in the legal environment. I was around attorneys and judges and classmates of mine that passed, and I was like, oh my God, all these people are going to think I'm an idiot. And one thing I realized really quickly was that all those fears were all internalized in my head, and that was not the reality. People know that it's a hard exam, and not everyone passes it, and it really is okay. It sounds so cliche, but I really thought, like, oh my God, like, I don't want to face anybody. I failed at this, and now, it was just going to be difficult people are going to be talking about this. And honestly, the only time they want to talk to you is like if they want to lend a hand. It's like nobody's judging you, but that's the environment that we're trying to, there's a level of expectation. And I think we hold ourselves up to that level more so than others will try to put us down. And your situation is very unique because you were in a relationship with somebody that passed, and I'm sure that had an effect. And now, you know, I guess the audience would assume that what a happy time, and then you went on to become successful here in Tucson at the city attorney's office. But what was that day like when you got the successful results? I don't know if you got something in the mail or if they were doing the online list at that time.
You still got it in the mail back then. They would post it, but it was like delayed, so it wasn't as instantaneous. And the funny thing is, like, I don't have a distinct memory of that day the way I do of the day where I got my unsuccessful notice.
Sure.
Like I know I passed it, but I don't. I do think like you were saying, like, yeah, one of your other guests said it just felt like more like a relief. Like I felt like, oh, I don't have this like mark of shame on me anymore, and like I don't remember being super celebratory. I just think it was more like, oh, okay, like now I can just like go on from here. So it is really funny because I don't have a like distinct memory of it. And like, whereas like the day where I didn't win, like where I didn't pass, that is like burned in my memory. Like I could tell you where I was sitting and crying when I was on the phone with my dad, but yeah, I don't have a solid memory of when I got the results that I passed.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you is that, do you think that, and I don't think I've asked this to any of the other guests who they all themselves passed, but do you think that it helped you in a way, maybe not just for the next bar exam, but for, you're further down the line in your career, going through that adversity? Do you think it had any benefits?
I think it did. I think we learn a lot more from the moments where we miss the mark than we do from the times that it came easy. And so I do think, it kind of taught me to think about that life isn't always going to work out the way you planned. Yeah. And it sounds so cliched. But like when, I was like in my early 20s and it felt so devastating. And I think to be able to like pick myself back up and realize like it's not that devastating and other people have been here and you can move on and you can have a successful career from here. I think it shaped a lot of who I wanted to be as an attorney and who I wanted to be as a mentor. I don't know if I would have felt the need to take on that mentoring role in the way that I've really tried to if I hadn't gone through that. And if I hadn't realized that the mentors in my life were so important and so vital in me getting through that. So I think it did. And it also taught me that like your plan A isn't necessarily the best plan for you, and kind of I never would have thought I was going to end up being a prosecutor. And because like I learned to be more open to what life throws at you, I ended up applying to be a prosecutor and loving it and really being happy in this career choice. So I think that it did. I think it shaped who I became.
Yeah, and from my personal experience with you, it might have seemed like something like such a small thing that you did. I think I was just emailing you about something, and your response, and I was working as a law clerk at the time trying to figure out what to do, pick myself back up, take it again. And it was very concise, and it might have seemed inconsequential to you, but it was very helpful to me when you told me, and that it was on my work email. That I obviously don't have that anymore, but it was like, you're going to be fine. You know, it's something that we go through. And I think you told me that you'd experienced that as well. And that was really something I needed to hear, because like I said, I'm not in the position where I can really have a in-depth conversation with my parents about it, because they don't know much about this field. And it's like, you know, just study and take it again. It's like, well, I mean, you don't know what that's like. It's a long time. And that's another good point to make, is that the way I've described it in previous episodes is like, you don't plan on failing it. So you make all these plan A's of like, okay, I'm going to graduate, then I'm going to do this, and then I'll get licensed and then do that. So when that plan sort of gets shelved, it kind of turns your world upside down in a way. You know, do I keep working in this clerk job? Do I stop working? But then what do I do to pay my bills? All of these things that you don't think about are now your reality. I think that makes it difficult. So I think that makes it even more helpful that people are willing to reach out and tell these bar takers that they're going to be okay, because you will be okay. And then this plan B ended up working out really well for me. I wouldn't have thought in a million years to go back to school after graduating law school, but it was the option that that was feasible, that would put me in a better position to pass. But also, you know, those feelings of doubt sort of like almost took over in a way. So I did admit this publicly in a previous episode, so it's not like a secret anymore. But I thought about not doing this anymore, not trying again. And I was actually in chambers putting together an application to be a Tucson police officer. And I know I would have done really well in that career. I might have even enjoyed it, but that's not the point. The point was like, I was doing that because of feelings of doubt based off of one, you know, like experience. And I don't think that that's enough to say, well, I'm just going to shift career choices. And for the rest of my life, I would have said I only made that decision because I didn't pass. I don't think that would have been comfortable with that. If you think back to when you were a student, what do you think, what would you have wanted to hear from, I mean, maybe someone in your position or an alumni generally, that you know now that you would have wanted to hear as a student?
You know, I think what I would have wanted to hear is that, you know, your grades and a test don't define you. That's not who you are. That's not the lawyer you're going to be. You know, and it's so hard because I know that the law school makes, you know, an effort to really try to draw that line, but, you know, so much of law school is based on your ranking or your grades or where you fall in the class. And so it becomes entangled in your own identity and in who you think you are and how you value yourself and how you value like your worth as a law student and as a graduate and as a lawyer. And that's just not accurate. You know, those things don't define you. What defines you is, you know, how you take on your ethical role as an attorney, how you give back to your community as a leader in the community. Like those are the things that matter. And, you know, I don't know that there are very many careers where one test gets to define you or has such an impact on how you define yourself or how you define your career. I think there are very few professions like that. Like I said in the beginning, you know, you wouldn't define Michael Jordan's career by the one game he lost. And imagine if he had completely changed tracks because he lost a game. You know,
let me go try football.
and that's kind of where we put ourselves, because we put so much value on these external things, so it doesn't define you, and you get to pick your career path. You get to pick the kind of lawyer you want to be. You get to pick the kind of mentor you want to be, and how you are going to define your role in society. And I wish there would have been somebody to tell me that. And I think that probably some people did, now, like, as I say that, I think back to some of the mentors that I had, and I think that they told me that, but I think there were so many other factors saying, like, this is how you're valued, that you miss hearing, all this noise means you miss hearing this important thing. So.
Well, I really believe that after saying that you're going to be that person to a student watching this. What you just said to me is very powerful, but to them, somebody that hasn't taken it before and is about to graduate and take the bar, or maybe even take it in February here soon, they needed to hear that, and they got it from you. So already we're doing great things. But the thing is, when I was in a practical environment, that's where I feel like I learned the most about what really matters. I worked in Phoenix, downtown, Maricopa County attorneys. I worked with you in the city prosecutor's office, and now having a 12-month experience as a law clerk. What really matters is how you are able to communicate with others, work as a team, all of these things that you're not taught. And none of those things have anything to do with grades, or whether you pass the bar on the first try, or the fifth, or the sixth, or the third. I don't know why the order came in that. But yeah, like if you were the number one student in your class, and everyone at your place of employment can't stand you, that's not going to be helpful once you're out of the school environment. And no one wants to hear about your class freaking rank like at a certain point. So none of that stuff even matters. And even though I was not like the top of my class or anything, once I stepped foot in the internship, the clerkship, wherever I was, none of that mattered. And what mattered was I willing to work? Was I willing to be part of the team? Was I willing to communicate? And generally, being good with people, that's a skill that you learn outside of law school that I would say benefited the most, and your ability to just sort of adapt to problems and do things like that, and so that you can have the trust of your employer to say he can handle it because he'll figure it out, or he'll ask questions. Like it's not going to be like, I don't know what to do, and panic all the time. And yeah, I just feel like you're right. We put too much pressure on being in this certain percentage or having these grades, and if I get a B, it's the end of the world. That's not I don't think that's helpful, especially when you're one of those people and then you get unfortunate results in the bar, because then all of that pressure just kind of like bursts, and you feel like even worse about something that you shouldn't really feel that bad about. It's not an easy exam by any measure. So I'm sure I'll hear some feedback from students that found your input very helpful, and they got to hear what I wish I could have heard from somebody through this platform, which is the whole point of it. So any last words to our students? And I think most of them are going to take the bar soon. They're graduating, but there could be some very ambitious 1Ls and 2Ls watching this. They're the future. And yeah, they're going through law school at a very interesting time. And you've been through it, and you got to where you're at, and a lot of them may want to follow your path. So you can take this time to sort of give them some sage wisdom.
I mean, I would say just don't forget how you got here. You got here because you're smart, because you work hard, and because you're talented. And one test doesn't define you. Obviously, put in the work, because you have to put in the work if you want to eventually be successful with that. But it doesn't define your career. And really, and reach out to people. Like, I'm always happy to talk to any law student who is struggling with the bar exam, or struggling to feel like they've found their place in law school. I mean, that's a whole other podcast, right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's me.
finding your place in law school. Or who doesn't know what they want to do. I mean, I will say I graduated from law school and I had no idea where I wanted to go or what I wanted to be or what, what legal job I wanted.
Did you get that a lot where, you might have been feeling that and then you talk to like a judge or an attorney and they're like, so what field of law do you want to practice? And then your response is just something like on the spot, but in your mind you're just like, I don't freaking know. Like,
yes, all the time. Right. And also, like, you go into law school thinking that you know what you want to do, and then I'm like, oh well, that's not even really a practice area. Like, you can't just be a civil rights attorney. I mean, you can do stuff for civil rights, but it's not like there's like a civil rights firm out there hiring you. So it's okay to not know, and it really is okay to fail. And probably failing early on in your career is better than failing later in your career, because it teaches you how to deal with it and how to move on. Because someday you're going to lose a big trial or a big motion hearing, and you need to know how to deal with that. So
that's a really good point. Heather, I'm so grateful that you came on the show. I'm certain that your words of wisdom are going to benefit so many students. And on their behalf, I just wanted to say thank you for coming on and sharing, because you could have just blew me off and not done this, said you have more important things to do. But I think it goes to that point that you want to give back after having such a rich experience in this, in whatever way you can, so that students that are about to go through the same thing or currently going through the same thing can benefit from the experiences that you had. So thank you again, and we'll hopefully have you back on when I finally pass.
Yay!
And then we can have like a reunion episode with all the guests.
I like
Actually, I just thought about that. That would be an amazing idea. Okay, cool. Let's do it.
I like it.
You gave some amazing quotes. So I usually use one quote as like the episode title. And now you put me in a position where you gave at least 5 or 6, which is a good thing, but it's like, which one do I choose? Because there's some really good ones.
I'm so thankful that you reached out to me, Chuck, and I'm glad that you're doing this. I wish something like this would have existed when I was in law school.
There certainly is a demand for it, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And anyone who wants to reach out to me, you can give them my contact info.
I will do that. So, all right, guys. So until the next episode, thanks, Heather, for stopping by. We'll see you on the show. Guys, I'm working late night to make this happen for all you students. I know you're grateful, but just know I'm putting in work for the next generation. All right, guys, we'll see you in the next episode.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode. Be sure to like and subscribe to the Bar Stories Project's YouTube channel so that you don't miss out on any new content. The Bar Stories Project is brought to you by creator and executive producer Chuck Bonazza, associate producer Patrick Ryan, original music by Justin St. John and Christian Savage. Join us next time on the Bar Stories Project.